afternoon. I'm Dia Harris, Public Affairs Manager for the Raleigh Police Department. Thank you all for attending today's third quarter crime statistics press event. Chief Patterson intends to hold these events quarterly to share information about violent crimes, and as you all know, she said it numerous times is a priority for her, how we're addressing it, and the outcomes we're seeing as a result of our efforts. I don't have to tell you this is something new for the Raleigh Police Department. It is part of Chief Patterson's pledge to be transparent, as well as her desire for the RPD to have a more open relationship with the media. Again, we're only discussing third quarter crime statistics. The Chief will take a few questions after her presentation, and I respectfully ask that you keep your questions focused on the information presented today. Afterward, we'll give each of you a handout with an overview of today's presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Patterson.
There we go. All right, thank you, Dia. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for the third quarter 2021 crime briefing. As Dia stated, this is something that I would like to continue to do. One of the things that I have repeatedly expressed as the new chief is my desire to make Raleigh the safest city in this country. I believe that one of the ways that we can accomplish this is by RPD being more open and transparent and partnering with the media to provide timely and relevant information to the community. I firmly believe that the community is aware of our crime challenges, then we can work collaboratively for a targeted response to reduce it. As part of my 100-day plan, I have critically assessed our violent crime within our community, and I'm working with my team to devise a strategic, intelligence-led plan to address it. Today, I'd like to touch on a few crime categories and statistics. I'll begin with homicides. During the third quarter of this year, there were 12 murders. The 12 is an increase over the 9 incidents that we had in the third quarter of 2020, and also an increase of the third quarter in 2019 where there were 4. I believe what we are experiencing with homicides, unfortunately, is part of a disturbing national trend based on increases in gun violence that is leading to lives being lost. Of the 12 murders in the third quarter, 4 were at nightclubs, bars, and clubs, and sweepstakes locations, which has prompted us to look more closely at the activity at these locations and the kind of people that are attending. One of the homicides was DV related. In 6, the suspects and the victims were known to each other. And although 12 lives were senselessly lost in these instances, I am happy to report that due to the extremely exceptional work by our homicide unit, with the help of the community, 11 of the 12 resulted in suspects being arrested and cases made on them. I want to be clear to those who are listening to me today that we are intent on coming after you if you commit violent crime in our city. We're not tolerant of it. We're not accepting of it. Robberies. I'm happy to share that we have seen a reduction in the number of robberies from person compared to the third quarter of both 2020 and 2019. In the third quarter, there were 105. In 2020, there were 125. And in 2019, there were 128. Aggravated assaults. Just as with homicides, the number of aggravated assaults have trended up. While aggravated assaults include stabbings and other incidents involving blunt objects, we are seeing an uptick in firearms being used to commit these assaults. In the third quarter of this year, there were 284 reported aggravated assaults, up from 257 in 2020 and 239 in 2019. Of the 284 incidents, 134, a little less than half of them, involved a firearm. 68 were DV related, involving individuals who were known to each other. 19 involved juveniles who had access to firearms. To bring awareness to this growing problem of our children having guns in their hands, we have been working with Wake County Public Schools and the LEADER program to discourage our youth from engaging in violence. Also, RPD officers have been working with 46 different elementary schools around the city speaking with fifth graders about making good life choices and being positive citizens. Although we are engaging our young people, we need more help in this area. I'm asking community groups to partner with RPD to provide gun awareness and anger management training for our youth. Those are the violent crime categories I believe that are most urgent, and I'd like to share my plan on what we are doing or what we will be working on to combat them. As we move into the fourth quarter and into 2022, my plans involve firstly increasing high visibility patrols in areas where we are experiencing repeat calls of violence. Also too, we want to work to install more cameras in these locations so we can have those extra eyes. I'm working with the Major Cities Chief Association and other private groups to acquire more cameras. Also too, we're going to be focusing heavily on priority offenders and those who are victimizing members of the public. I will also be working very closely with other law enforcement agencies, particularly our federal partners and the DA's office for enhanced charges and sentences for violent offenders. Additionally, we will continue to work with our community leaders and our neighborhoods. That is an important aspect of reducing crime. The community must be involved. And of course, we continue to encourage members of the public to contact Crime Stoppers if you know anything about what is occurring. And again, that number is 919-834-4357. Turning to property crimes, I want to highlight two in particular where we have seen some increases. They are vehicle thefts and items being stolen from vehicles. With respect to vehicle thefts, we experienced an increase in the third quarter of this year over the third quarter of last year. We had 307 incidents this year compared to 273 the same time last year. And in 2015, there were 215. Now, these thefts were fairly distributed throughout the city, which just goes to point out that there's no part of the city that is exempt from cars being stolen or broken into. While 307 cars were stolen in Raleigh in the third quarter, a total of 375 were recovered. This number does reflect cars that are stolen outside of our jurisdiction that we're able to find here in Raleigh. One of our patrol districts I want to highlight that has done a particularly great job and been very instrumental in finding and recovering these vehicles has been our Southeast Division. I cannot encourage it enough, especially as the temperatures begin to dip. Please do not leave your cars unattended. Don't leave them running. Please do not leave spare keys or fobs within the vehicle. Please do not leave your cars, items in your car that are unsecured and in plain sight. Turning to thefts from vehicles, these incidents have been a consistent trend that we have seen over the past couple of years. So in the third quarter of 2021, we had 661 incidents of thefts from vehicles, and 79 of those instances, guns were taken. In the third quarter of 2020, there were 662, with 67 firearms stolen. And in 2019, there were 672 incidents with 43 firearms taken. So we're seeing this uptick of firearms being stolen from vehicles. Before I conclude, I just want to highlight some positive work that we have seen in the third quarter. Our officers are working tremendously around the clock to make Raleigh a safe city. And even though we have seen increases in violent crime and vehicle thefts, we are still impacting criminal behavior. In the third quarter, we confiscated 239 illegally possessed firearms, and we continue to search high and low to get dangerous weapons off of our streets. We're also addressing speeding and reckless driving through speed reduction campaigns and DWI checkpoints. We're teaming up with other police agencies to conduct these campaigns throughout the county. And as we open back up for COVID, you will see our officers making more traffic stops for those who are speeding in school zones, along with our high traffic corridors, where we have seen vehicle fatalities. Additionally, we will continue our Lock It or Lose It education campaigns. Finally, we are always seeking the public's cooperation and reporting of information related to criminal behavior. Again, you can report that through Crime Stoppers. That is anonymous. Before I open it up to question, I'd like to close with a few points. In the spirit of transparency, it is important to me that I keep the lines of communication open with the public. If we are going to keep Raleigh safe, we must take a unified approach where we stand and agree together that violence is unacceptable. I'm asking that if you are a nonprofit, a faith-based group, or a business that is working to provide alternatives for you to violence, that you reach out to us. We want to partner with you on that. Thank you all for joining me today. I have members of my team here with me to answer any questions that you may have related to this crime.
Chief, you talked about reaching out to youth, management, and awareness. The majority of the homicides are gunshot wounds. So is there anything that you've done proactively to seize guns? Are these guns that are licensed? Are these stolen guns? Are the guns that are you planning to take back?
Right. So we're interested in guns that are illegally possessed. So if you're carrying a concealed weapon or a stolen weapon, those are the ones that we're confiscating. Those are the ones that we're interested in getting. And then making sure, too, that those weapons haven't been used in other violent crimes.
Are the homicides from unlicensed guns or those stolen guns?
Some may, and I don't know if Major Anderson has any more information on that. There's been, I think, a variety of different guns used in cases. One of the big things that we do, though, when we do confiscate a gun or when we get a gun, is to get it tested to see. We're trying to determine if that particular gun has been in circulation and used in other crimes as well.
So you say you're increasing your patrols in areas of high crime and with violent crime. Tell us where in Raleigh those are, where the hot spots have been seen over the past few years, increasing, especially the past few months. Where are you increasing the patrols?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to ask Major Boyce. He is our major over our patrol services.
Yes, I'm Major Rico Boyce. I'm the Field Operations Commander. We have seen an increase of violent crime in late-night establishments along our major corridors where bars and clubs are open pretty late. So we reallocated some resources to those locations to try to be proactive in stopping individuals from that may be in possession of a legal firearm before they even get to that location. So we have increased around, like say, nightclubs, bars, major corridors where we see an increase in traffic.
In those neighborhoods, though, that you guys are going into and talking to, what are the neighborhoods that you guys are focusing on?
Well, like the chief said, we've experienced, like say, crime citywide or whatever. So it's not one particular neighborhood that we're in. We're just like say where the crime is going, where it's happening. We're using intelligence to drive our decisions on where we're going, and it's more around, like say, those late night establishments where we're focusing our patrol efforts.
Hi, Chief. My name is Tony Kaplan from ABC 11. Welcome to Raleigh.
Thank you.
What do you want viewers to think about when they hear these numbers? When you talk about transparency, how does sharing these numbers achieve transparency?
So it's more than anything for awareness. Raleigh is a great city in terms of our crime numbers. They're not very high comparatively to our population, which is wonderful, and we want to keep it that way. But if the public doesn't even know what those numbers are and what our issues are, then they don't know what to concentrate or to be more vigilant. My thing is, I want to make sure that every member of the public is aware where there might be crime occurring, incidents that happen, and then being able to share that information with us. Those who live in the community, in the neighborhood, you know better than anybody who's responsible for certain crimes. We want to know who those individuals are. And with our homicide numbers, the clearance rate is so high, it's because community tips have come in and we have gone hard after those offenders. Wherever they might be hiding, somewhere up in Boston, somewhere in other counties in North Carolina, we will find them that we can bring them back to Raleigh for justice.
You just spoke about the fact that you are going to be allocating extra resources to different places, more patrols for speeding. Every business in North Carolina is having trouble filling shifts, getting work. Is that a concern for the Raleigh Police Department? Are you equipped to be able to do all the things that you want to do currently?
I think you're spot on that everybody's experiencing shortages to include the police department. That's why we look for force multipliers. I talked about cameras. That is a way to help us to have extra eyes out in our intelligence units, officers who monitor those cameras so that we can have more people looking at what's going on. And we are hiring. Thank you for that. And we are constantly hiring.
How many open positions?
The police department are over 100 officers short.
Oh, Chief Patterson, just one more. I wanted to just get your reaction to the 23% rise in gun violence and get an understanding from your point of view if, in fact, what can be attributed to that. Because I think in other U.S. cities, you'll have various police departments say it's because of COVID, it was during the height of COVID. I wonder, now that we're kind of in 2021, what would be your reaction as to why you think that this is happening right now?
I think it's the residual from COVID. I really do believe that. Last year, because of COVID, that person right there. As I was stating, is last year we were kind of hands off. There was less enforcement of it, and so I believe that individuals, we have more people out now. They have guns. They have access to guns. We are getting guns off the street, but we know there's a lot more out there that are being possessed illegally. So I think really it is a continuation of what we faced last year, and if we're not in front of it, if we're not proactive enough, it's going to continue to increase.
See the less enforcement, less enforcement.
So we're going to thank
Do
you
you
all
have any
so much.
updates to the investigation into Omar Abdullah? I realize it's not crime statistics related, but people are very curious about that.
So we're not speaking about that right now. If you all have additional questions, please feel free to email me. Stacy has some the information that the chief discussed today. She has the handouts available for you all so that you don't have to try to remember what those numbers are. But go ahead, I don't know if you can even hear me. Go ahead and email me your additional questions, okay? And we'll go ahead and get that information to you. Thank you guys so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you at the next